You know there are real ups when you are going down, she wrote. You take life much slower and see much more of the beauty and strangeness of the world. You eat slower and really enjoy every flavour and smell. Sleep is gentler. You sort of rest in God's company rather than wailing on about the worries of the day. Yeah, I can hear some of you saying. Hospices are supposed to be like that, and you, Penny, are a cheerful person who people are nice to. So tell me why I am so joyful, peaceful, and not just getting what I ask for, but more, even though I am definitely dying. I've got to go. They've paid up my pension. And the best of it all is that he wants to give it all to you too. Praying for you, so there. Love, Penny. It was the last in a series of honest, funny and moving emails which Penny Phillips, one of our congregation members in Twickenham, sent out to her large numbers of supporters, believers and unbelievers alike. During the 3 years or so since she had first been told that she had just a few months to live, this popular extrovert drama teacher had shared the ups and downs of her life with remarkable honesty, sometimes confessing to near despair, real dark nights of the soul, at others acknowledging the wonderful reality of God's peace and joy in the midst of it all. Within 2 weeks of writing that email, Penny was dead, and her funeral drew together a large and diverse crowd of people, each one of whom had been profoundly moved by her witness. Because there's something about human courage which inspires people more than almost anything else. And what could be more courageous than the ability to look death in the eye whilst retaining a sense of peace, joy and resurrection hope? Where, O death, is your sting? Where, O grave, your victory? As St. Paul famously put it. That ability made a powerful impact on the Roman world as the Church began to stretch its wings, a world which itself prized courage, but which had never seen anything quite like this before. When Peter and John faced the threats of Annas and Caiaphas on the very premises in which Peter had previously denied his Lord, the apostles astonished their accusers in responding, "We cannot but speak about what we have seen and heard," then did precisely that. When Stephen was dragged out of the city by an angry mob with a man called Saul at its helm, and they took up stones to kill him, Stephen completely nonplussed his accusers by calmly committing his spirit to Jesus his Lord, then loudly praying for God's forgiveness on his persecutors. When that very prayer was dramatically answered on the road to Damascus, as Stephen's foremost killer became grace incarnate, Paul's sheer courage through beatings, imprisonments, shipwrecks and stonings became legendary even among those who wished him harm. And one by one, those original 12 apostles, whom Jesus had first called to take up their cross and follow him, did just that, with only one of them dying of natural causes. The next Christian generations would require similar courage in response to the ever more lurid propaganda, fake news, used against them. "We are accused of being monsters of wickedness," complained Tertullian of that propaganda, observing a sacred rite in which we kill a little child and eat it. Then after the feast we are supposed to practice incest. This is what is constantly laid to our charge, and yet you never try to uncover the truth. Inspiring accounts of the martyrdoms of men like Ignatius and Polycarp and women like Perpetua and Felicity began to do the rounds. Tertullian famously spoke of the blood of Christians as being like seed, which would only propagate the faith more widely. One of his contemporaries threw out the challenge, "Have you not seen Christians flung to the wild beasts to make them deny their Lord and yet remain undefeated? Do you not see that how the more of them suffer such punishments, the larger grow the number of the rest? These things do not look like the work of man. They are the power of God and the evident tokens of his presence." And while all these accounts are ancient history, they also speak of the lived experience of thousands upon thousands of our Christian brothers and sisters in the world today. Just before Christmas, in the city of Sialkot, in the Punjab area of Pakistan, which I visited in 2019 and with which we have a diocesan link, a Christian was lynched on the streets, covered with petrol and set alight by an angry mob who accused him of blasphemy in an event eerily reminiscent of the martyrdom of St. Stephen. And why this is quite so important is that there are many situations in our lives that require real courage, and perhaps some of us are facing them now. They may be less drastic than Penny's visit to the doctor, which began with, "It's bad news, I'm afraid," let alone that lynching on the streets of Sialkot, but they are genuinely difficult and challenging nevertheless. And in that very challenge, we are provided with a powerful opportunity to grow up as disciples of Christ ourselves and to help others to grow up with us. It's in that sense that St. Paul can even call on us to rejoice in our sufferings. And while most of us probably won't be able to go quite that far, we can still recognise how difficult times have amazing potential to transform us for the better, so long as we don't just give way to bitterness and self-pity, building our courage muscles, growing our characters, and ultimately leading us to a deeper encounter with God through the Holy Spirit. That doesn't mean that we should suffer silently behind our well-groomed, stiff upper lips. It certainly doesn't mean that we should encourage people to remain in abusive relationships out of a misguided sense that they're somehow character building. But it does mean that courage and discipleship growth spurts are closely linked. It takes courage, for example, to be a public Christian in our workplace, friendship group and community, even if the worst we can probably expect is hardly a lynching, maybe just a sneer or the odd joke at our expense. It takes courage to step up in our Christian lives and take on new challenges and responsibilities, though many of our churches need that right now. Those rites of passage, both joyful and heartrending, that the Church marks through baptisms and confirmations, weddings and funerals, all take courage of different kinds. Those creative ways in which many of our churches have responded to the pandemic have all taken courage. And where we commit to embracing such courage-building activities rather than simply playing it safe and comfortable, our hearts are expanded and we grow in spiritual stature, truly life in all its fullness rather than life in all its dullness. And so for our Bible study this week, I'd like us to turn to Acts chapter 20 and verses 17 to 38, a story where Paul is giving his fond farewells to a group of church leaders from Ephesus before setting sail for Jerusalem, where he knows he's going to be arrested and tried. I hope you find it as moving a reading as I do, and may God bless you in any situation right now in which you require real courage.